Imagine this. You're in the middle of a conversation with someone and suddenly you hear a sentence that just feels off. Not because it's rude, not even because it's technically wrong, but because it's empty, shallow, unnecessary. You know the kind of comment that makes you think, did they even realize what they just said? Maybe it's gossip dressed up as concern, a criticism disguised as advice, or just a random opinion blurted out without a second thought. We've all heard or said something like that. And here's the thing. The smartest people aren't the ones who talk the most. They're the ones who know exactly when to stay silent. To them, silence speaks louder than 1,000 arguments. And that's where Stoicism comes in. A simple, practical philosophy that teaches one core truth. Wisdom is knowing how to control what you can control. And that includes the words that come out of your mouth. Now stop and think for a moment. How many moments in your life would have gone differently if you had just said less? How many opportunities wouldn't have slipped away? How many conflicts could have been avoided if silence had taken the place of rushed words? In this video, we're going to explore 12 things a truly intelligent and stoic person simply doesn't say. Not because there's a rule against it, but because self-awareness is the highest form of wisdom. And to make this message even stronger, let's begin with a story. In a quiet mountain village, there lived an old wise man known for his deep calm. He rarely spoke, but when he did, his words echoed deep into people's hearts. A young man from the city once sought him out, eager to learn the secret to his wisdom. The old sage offered him a challenge. Remain in complete silence for 7 days. Each morning I will give you a truth. The young man agreed. And in the days that followed, he learned that there are things better left unsaid, not because they're forbidden, but because speaking without awareness is like throwing stones at your own inner peace. That story reflects everything we're about to explore. A powerful and practical journey through 12 sentences, behaviors, and phrases that a wise mind simply avoids, not out of fear, but because it understands that self-mastery is the greatest power of all. So if you want to learn how to apply this Stoic wisdom in your everyday life, in a simple, practical, and deeply transformative way, stay with me until the end. Because maybe, just maybe, you're about to realize that staying silent might just be the loudest sign of intelligence you'll ever give. Before we dive into the list of the 12 things a truly intelligent person never says, it's important to understand the why behind it all. Why is it so essential to control what we say? Why, for the Stoics, does what we say, or choose not to say, reveal so much about who we are? The answer is simple. Because your words build the world around you. They can heal or harm, bring people closer or push them away. They can create or destroy. And deep down, you know it. Every word you release into the world is like an arrow. Once it leaves, it doesn't come back. The Stoics, like Seneca and Epictetus, didn't write long essays on communication, but they taught clear lessons about self-control, prudence, and awareness of the present moment. And all of that applies directly to the way we speak. Speaking with wisdom isn't about having the perfect response for everything. It's about knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. Knowing that not everything needs to be said, not every opinion needs to be voiced. And often, silence is the greatest sign of inner strength. Over the next few minutes, we're going to explore 12 phrases, habits, and patterns of speech that wise people intentionally avoid, and more than just avoiding them. We'll learn what to say instead, how to replace impulsive reactions with reflection, how to swap criticism for empathy, and complaints for meaningful action. Each topic will bring a real-life example, a practical lesson, and a personal insight, one that invites you to pause and reflect. And by the time you reach the end of this journey, you won't hear yourself the same way again. You'll think twice before saying something automatic. And you'll understand, maybe for the first time, that true intelligence lives in silence, in the pause, in the power of a conscious choice. Number 1, gossip. Imagine you're at work, having a coffee, and someone walks up to you. Did you hear what happened with Juliana? In that moment, your brain lights up like a switch. Curiosity kicks in. You lean in, wanting to know more. But have you ever stopped to wonder why we do this? Why we feel pleasure in talking or listening about someone else's life? The answer is simple and a little dark. Gossip gives us the illusion of power, but it's a fragile kind of power, poisonous, and it comes at a high price. According to the Stoics, anything outside our control should be ignored. And someone else's life? That fits perfectly in that category. When you talk about someone who isn't there, you're pulling away from the one thing you can actually change: yourself. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Be more concerned with what you say than what others do." That hits deep. It's a call to look inward. Because every time you choose to gossip, you're wasting energy you could use to grow, to build, to evolve. And there's something even more serious. Gossip eats away at your credibility. If you speak badly about someone easily, the person listening will think, if they talk about them like this, they'll talk about me too. Without realizing it, you dig a hole of mistrust, one where no healthy relationship can survive. So, what does a truly wise person do? They steer away with grace. If someone starts gossiping, they gently change the subject. They talk about ideas, not people. And when they feel the urge to share something they heard, they take a deep breath and ask themselves, will this help someone? Will it build something or just entertain? If the answer is no, they choose silence. Wisdom is about protecting your mental energy. And gossip, it's like a virus. Once it gets in, it spreads, it infects, and eventually, it destroys. Number 2, speaking on impulse. Have you ever been through this? You're in the middle of a conversation, and without thinking, a sentence just slips out. At the moment, it feels harmless, but seconds later, regret kicks in. Why did I say that? That's the trap of impulse. The mind is still processing, but the mouth has already taken the lead. To the Stoics, this is the opposite of wisdom. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen more and speak less." And as simple as that sentence may seem, it holds one of the most powerful principles of emotional intelligence. Think before you speak. A wise person understands that not every emotion needs to become a word. They observe what they feel. They recognize anger, frustration, pride, impatience. But they don't turn those into reckless phrases. Want to know why? Because words are like arrows. Once released, they don't come back. They hit. They leave a mark. And sometimes they hurt even more than a punch. Wise people use a powerful technique, the pause. They take a deep breath before responding. They count to 5. And in that space between stimulus and response, they make the right choice. Picture a traffic incident. Someone cuts you off. Your blood boils. Your first instinct is to yell, honk, insult. But then you pause and think, is this really going to make my day better? And so, you stay quiet, you move on, and you win over yourself. Speaking on impulse is easy. Responding with wisdom, that's the real challenge. And that's what separates the foolish from the wise, the ordinary from the extraordinary. So the next time you feel the urge to say something in the heat of the moment, ask yourself, does this really need to be said? And does it need to be said now? If the answer is no, then smile, breathe, and let silence be your best response. Number 3, lies. Everyone's told a little white lie, right? That line you say to avoid conflict, or maybe to impress someone. But what if I told you that every lie has a cost, even the smallest one? Lying is like building a house on sand. At first, everything seems stable. But little by little, it starts to sink. And the worst part? Most of the time you don't even notice it. For the Stoics, truth is a choice made by the brave. Epictetus once said, "It's better to be hurt by the truth than comforted by a lie." Because lies weaken you. They demand more lies to stay standing. And before you know it, you're stuck in a cycle of pretending, where you can't even remember what you said or to whom. A truly intelligent person understands this. Truth may sting, but it sets you free. Lies may feel comforting for a moment, but they trap you from within. Now picture a relationship built on lies, a friendship, a romance, a work partnership. At first, things seem to flow, but when the truth comes out, and it always does, everything collapses. Trust turns to dust, and rebuilding, almost impossible. Now think about your reputation. Every time you speak the truth, even when it's hard, you're making a deposit in your credibility bank. But every lie, no matter how small, is a withdrawal. And when that account hits zero, you lose the most valuable thing of all, other people's trust. That doesn't mean being harsh or insensitive. You can tell the truth with empathy. You can choose silence when it's wiser. But lying to manipulate, to please, or to escape, never a wise path. Want to live lighter? Speak with honesty. Want to sleep in peace? Avoid deceiving others and yourself. Because at its core, lying reveals fear. Fear of being who you really are, fear of facing consequences. But the truth reveals strength. So choose wisely. Number 4, oversharing financial details. Have you ever noticed how sometimes we feel the urge to share how much we earned, what we bought, or how much we paid for something, just to impress someone? It's almost automatic. It feels like showing numbers somehow makes us look more important. But does it really? A truly intelligent person understands the power of financial silence. Not because they have something to hide, but because they know that more often than not, oversharing opens doors to judgment, envy, and even risk. The Stoics practice something called living with simplicity. Marcus Aurelius, even as an emperor, dressed humbly and avoided showing off. To him, a man's worth wasn't measured by his riches, but by his ability to stay true to his values, even in the face of temptation. When you expose your earnings, your investments, your possessions, you become vulnerable, because not everyone around you wants what's best for you. And more than that, talking too much about money can make others uncomfortable, or feed the ego of those who live to compete. True intelligence is about protecting your peace. Wise people talk about ideas, not bank balances. They invest their energy into growing on the inside, not proving something on the outside. And when money does need to be discussed, they do it with trusted people, in safe spaces, and always with discretion. You don't have to prove anything to anyone. Your worth isn't in your bank account, your car, or the number of zeros on your paycheck. Your worth is in your essence, and if someone only respects you because of what you have, then that respect was never real to begin with. Want a real-life example? Imagine you tell a coworker you just got a raise. At first, they seem genuinely happy for you, but a few days later, the mood shifts. They act distant. They throw subtle jabs. Suddenly, there's tension that didn't exist before, and it all could have been avoided. Keeping your financial details private is an act of wisdom. It's like putting a shield around your peace. It protects your energy, and it helps you stay focused on what truly matters, who you are, not what you own. Number 5, provoking others. You know when someone says something just to get under your skin, or that little jab disguised as a joke? Yeah. For many people, provoking has become a sport. But someone who's truly intelligent doesn't play that game. Provocation is a subtle form of control. It's like the other person is trying to push your buttons, just to see how you'll react. And if you take the bait, congratulations, you've just handed over your peace to someone else. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be." Powerful, right? Because it reminds us, the pain caused by words only gets in if you open the door. Now think about this. If someone provokes you and you respond with anger or defensiveness, what are you really showing? That you're in control of yourself? Or that you're easily manipulated by emotion? A wise person sees through the provocation. They recognize that most of the time the other person is just projecting their own frustration, so they choose not to strike back. Not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. Want a real example? Picture this. You're with friends, and someone says, "You never seem to keep a relationship, do you?" You could snap back, defend yourself, argue, or you could simply smile and say, "Yeah, I'm learning at my own pace," and move on. When you don't feed the fire, the flame dies. The provocateur loses their power, and you keep your peace. Provoking shows immaturity. Responding with balance shows emotional intelligence. And mastering your reactions, that's one of the greatest signs of self-control. So next time someone tries to push your buttons, breathe, look them in the eyes, and with calm, choose silence or humor. Show them that your peace isn't for sale, because in the end, the one who provokes is trapped in inner chaos, and the one who doesn't respond is already free. Number 6, speaking in anger. Anger is one of the most intense emotions we can feel. It burns from the inside, makes your heart race, dries your mouth, and shakes your voice. But when a wise person feels anger, they don't speak. They wait. Marcus Aurelius, emperor and Stoic philosopher, once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike those who wronged you." And that begins the very moment you decide not to react. Speaking in anger is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You think you're fixing the problem, but you're only making the flames bigger. You know those arguments where you say something harsh and regret it seconds later? Yeah, those words don't come back. They leave a mark. They wound. They linger. And often they weren't said because you meant them, but because you were blinded by emotion. A wise person knows that the first step to emotional balance is to pause, not to run from anger, but to not act out of it. Feel it, breathe, let it pass. Then, respond. Here's a simple but powerful exercise. Next time anger rises, count to 10 before saying anything. If you still want to speak, count to 20. That short pause gives reason time to get back in control. The Stoics didn't deny emotions. They observed them. They understood that feeling anger is human, but acting in anger is a choice. Now imagine how many fights, regrets, and emotional scars you could avoid just by waiting a little before reacting. Want a practical example? You get criticized at work. Your boss says something that really gets to you. Your first instinct? Snap back. But instead, you breathe, jot down what was said, and calmly respond the next day. What happens? You show maturity, balance, and respect, and you earn points for your emotional intelligence. Speaking in anger is impulsive. Waiting is strategic. The one who yells loses credibility. The one who listens and responds wisely earns respect. So next time your blood boils, ask yourself, will this matter tomorrow? If the answer is no, choose silence. Number 7, oversharing on social media. Have you ever stopped to think about how much you've shared on social media in just the last few days? A photo, a thought, a rant, a win? But does everything really need to be posted? A wise person knows that not everything we live needs to be displayed. In fact, many of life's most precious things, peace, true love, spiritual growth, are born and nurtured in silence. Social media gave us a voice, a stage, and an audience. But it also brought anxiety, comparison, and a constant craving for validation. How many times have you posted something hoping for likes and felt disappointed? How often have you felt bad seeing someone else's perfect life? The Stoics preached self-mastery, even in the face of vanity. Epictetus taught that we should care more about who we are than how we appear. And that's the key question. Who are you when no one's watching? Oversharing your life waters down your essence. It's like throwing your doors wide open and letting everyone walk in, even the unwanted. You lose control of your story, and little by little, you start living for the eyes of others. Want a real example? You start a new project. Instead of letting the idea mature in silence, you post it on your stories, announce your plans, commit publicly. A few days later, the motivation fades, you give up, and now you feel ashamed. All because you spoke before things were solid. Wise people cultivate the habit of discretion. They share less, observe more, live deeply, but in peace, away from the spotlight. Of course, using social media with balance can be positive. You can inspire, learn, connect. But always remember, those who live to be seen are often hiding from themselves. When in doubt, try this simple exercise. Before posting something, ask yourself, is this necessary? Will it add value to someone? Or is it just a cry for attention? The answer will guide you. Social media is a tool. You can use the hammer to build or to hurt yourself. Number 8, making fun of others. Laughter is a beautiful thing, but the real question is, who are we laughing at? Too often we use humor as a weapon. We mock someone's appearance, the way they speak, their life choices, all to seem funny. But the truth is, laughing at others doesn't make you look big. It just shows how small you still are on the inside. Stoicism teaches that true power comes from within, from the ability to control yourself, to act with wisdom, and above all, with empathy. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Mocking someone isn't strength, it's weakness. Most of the time, sarcastic laughter comes from a place of insecurity. You mock others before they can mock you. You strike first, so you won't be struck. But a truly intelligent person sees this for what it is, and chooses not to play that game. Want a simple example? A coworker messes up during a presentation. Someone laughs, another makes a joke, but the wise one offers support. They know they could have been the one up there struggling, because someone who's fallen before doesn't laugh at someone else's fall. They reach out. Making fun of others is childish behavior disguised as cleverness, and worse, it creates unsafe, toxic environments. People stop expressing themselves out of fear of being laughed at. And when fear takes over, growth dies. If you want to be seen as wise, strong, and respectable, start with respect. Laugh with people, not at them. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. You know those just joking comments? They might be the final blow to someone's self-esteem, because you don't know what others are carrying inside. You don't know what battles they're fighting. The world already has enough critics. Be someone who lifts others up, not someone who tears them down. Be the silence that protects, not the laughter that wounds. And if someone mocks you, remember this: the best response is elegance, because nothing disarms a bully like maturity. Number 9, making empty commitments. How many times have you said yes, knowing you probably wouldn't follow through? Just to be polite, just to avoid disappointing someone, or maybe just to dodge conflict. But the truth is, every promise made without real intention is a seed of frustration for the one who heard it, and especially for the one who made it. In Stoicism, your word has weight. It's almost sacred. If you say something, you're expected to own it. Because honoring your word is one of the greatest signs of integrity. Epictetus said, "Don't explain your philosophy, embody it." And that applies perfectly to commitments. You don't need to say a lot. You just need to follow through. Imagine your relationships as a bank account. Each time you keep a promise, you make a deposit. Each time you break one, you make a withdrawal. Eventually, the account runs dry, and with it, trust disappears. Empty commitments might seem harmless at first, but over time, they wreck reputations. People stop taking you seriously. Want a clear example? Someone asks for help with a project. You say, "Sure, you can count on me," just to be nice. But in reality, you forget cancel, delay. That doesn't just hurt your image, it affects the progress of the project and damages the emotions of the person who trusted you. Wise people know how to say no. A respectful no is worth far more than an empty yes. And it's not selfish, it's honest. Here's a simple exercise. Before agreeing to something, take a deep breath and ask yourself, do I really have the time, energy, and willingness to commit to this? If the answer is no, have the courage to decline. And when you say yes, follow through. Even if it's inconvenient, even if it's exhausting, because keeping your word builds self-respect and elevates your credibility. In the end, real intelligence isn't about making more promises, it's about keeping every single one you make. Number 10. Disrespecting beliefs and religions. Have you ever wondered why different people believe in different things? Why one person follows a certain religion, and another, none at all? The truth is, behind every belief, there's a story, a pain, a hope. And when you mock or diminish that, you're not being smart, you're being cruel. Stoicism teaches us to respect others as they are, even if they think differently, even if they believe in something you don't. Seneca once wrote, "Treat your neighbor with respect, for he is just as human as you are." And that applies, especially, to spirituality. A truly wise person doesn't impose their views. They listen, they observe, they understand that you don't have to agree with someone to respect them. Imagine the world as a giant garden. Each flower represents a different religion, belief, or philosophy. When you try to rip out every flower that's different from yours, the garden loses its color. It becomes dull, lifeless. In the name of reason, many people disrespect others. They mock, they ridicule someone else's faith. But behind that attitude, there's usually pride or fear. Truly intelligent people don't need to humiliate others to feel right. They understand that every human sees life through their own lens, shaped by their experiences, their wounds, their background. Want a real example? Someone tells you they light a candle every night to pray. Instead of laughing or brushing it off, ask, "What does that mean to you?" You may not adopt the same ritual, but you might learn something powerful from the answer. The diversity of beliefs is an opportunity. It doesn't threaten your truth. It expands your perspective. And most importantly, it tests your ability to live in peace with others. Because the truly wise person is the one who finds value even in what they don't fully understand. So, if you want to be admired for your intelligence, don't use your words to attack what someone else holds sacred. Use them to build bridges, to create empathy, to show that respect is more powerful than any argument. Number 11. Betraying confidences. Has someone ever told you something in secret? Something intimate, deep, trusting that you would keep it safe? And you told someone else? It might seem small at the moment, an harmless vent. But what's really at stake is huge: trust. And once trust is broken, it rarely rebuilds the same way. Stoicism deeply values honor and self-control. Epictetus said, "First learn the meaning of what you say, then speak." In other words, understand the weight of your words before you use them. When someone shares a secret with you, they're giving you a vulnerable part of themselves. They're saying without words, "I trust you to protect me." And if you expose that, you don't just break trust, you break the person. Think of relationships as a rope bridge. Every act of loyalty strengthens that bridge, but just one cut, one betrayal, can make it collapse. A wise person knows that keeping a secret is a sign of maturity. More than that, it's a sign of respect for someone else's pain, fear, and story. Have you noticed how some people get close just to gather info and then spread it around? Those people think they're being smart, but they're only digging their own loneliness, because in the end, no one trusts them. Being worthy of others' trust is an honor, a quiet recognition, and wise people guard it like a treasure. Want a practical tip? When someone starts telling you something about another person, ask, "Does she know you're telling me this?" If the answer is no, change the subject. Be a keeper of secrets, not a dealer of gossip. Life is tough enough without people being afraid to trust. Be the one others know they can count on. Be the safe silence, the steady shoulder, the trustworthy space. And remember, reputation is built with actions, not words. And keeping secrets is one of the noblest actions there is. Number 12, complaining all the time. Stop for a second and think, how many times have you complained in the past few days? About the weather, about traffic, about work, about people, about yourself. Now think, how many of those complaints actually solved anything? Most of them. Don't change a thing. They just wear you down, weigh you down, trap you in an invisible cycle of frustration. In Stoicism, there's a powerful phrase, "It's not what happens to you that matters, but how you react to what happens." This phrase is from Epictetus, and it sums up one of life's greatest keys. Constant complaining is like shaking a cup full of tea. The more you stir, the harder it is to drink. You can't see the bottom, you don't see a way out. Everything looks blurry. And worse, those around you feel this weight too, because nobody likes being near someone who only points out problems and never looks for solutions. Intelligent and wise people understand that not everything can be changed, but everything can be faced with a different attitude. Want to truly change your life? Swap complaints for action. Replace "this won't work" with "what can I do about this?" Trade bitter rants for productive reflections. Of course, we're human. We all need to vent sometimes, but venting is different from living in complaint. Venting clears the mind. Constant complaining contaminates it. If you're constantly airing your frustrations to everyone without filter, you're spreading your cloud. And the result is loneliness. People drift away, and you feel even more misunderstood. Want a Stoic exercise? For the next 3 days, every time you feel like complaining, write it down. But at the end of the sentence add, "What can I do about this?" This simple habit shifts your perspective and shows you that you have more control than you think. In the end, intelligent people save their words and know that inner peace is worth more than being right or getting attention. Speak less, act more, complain less, be grateful more. This silent exchange turns chaos into clarity. After everything you've heard so far, one thing becomes clear. True intelligence isn't just about knowing a lot. It's about knowing what not to say. We live in a noisy world. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone wants to be heard. Everyone wants to speak. But few know how to stay silent. Few have the self-control to choose silence when the impulse screams to shout. Wise people don't rush to judge. They don't need to show off. They don't panic trying to prove they're right. They observe, they breathe, they wait for the right moment. And often, they choose not to speak at all. That is strength. That is self-mastery. That is Stoic wisdom in action. You might have the highest degree in the world. You might speak 3 languages, have read 200 books, earn well. But if you don't master your mouth, your words, and your impulses, you're still far from truly wise. Each of the 12 points we've covered here is like a blade. It can cut or heal. It depends on how you use it. Speaking impulsively, mocking, gossiping, lying, complaining, breaking secrets, disrespecting someone's faith. These are behaviors that silently corrode your intelligence. Because intelligence, in the end, is also about choosing peace. Imagine living a life with fewer conflicts, more respect, more presence, more clarity. That's what Stoicism offers. A path back to yourself, an invitation to reflect, a freedom from what is useless. So before you speak, think. Before you judge, listen. Before you react, breathe. Because sometimes the smartest move is simply to say nothing at all. If this video spoke to you, if at any point you saw yourself in these situations, or if you simply felt the need to be quieter and observe more, leave a comment below telling us which of these 12 habits you need to work on the most. Share this video with someone who also needs to reflect on this. Maybe it's the quiet conversation they need today. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Here you'll find more content that challenges your mind and strengthens your spirit. Because in the end, true transformation starts with a simple choice: listen more and speak less.